Welcome back to In Pursuit of Magic, where we explore the things that inspire us, connect us, and the magic we find along the way. I'm Matthew Medina, and today's very special guest is incredibly talented filmmaker who is the co-founder of Mezcla Media Collective and whose documentary Traces of Home not only had its world premiere at the Doc NYC festival this month, but won the grand jury prize for U.S. competition. I'm so immensely proud, excited, and honored to welcome Colette Ghunim. Colette, thank you so much for being here. Very excited to talk about everything.
Thank you, and I love your podcast. I'm so excited to
Thank
to
you.
talk more as well. Thank you.
There's so much to talk about in terms of Traces of Home and you directing it and putting it together and it being such a personal experience. But before we get into that, I'm very curious about what were your inspirations when it came to being interested in filmmaking? And do you think
Mm,
your father's love for the camera has a lot to do with that?
yes, I think yes. It's funny because it's like I never thought of it as a full career, and then, of course, how life takes that turn of creating the full circle of like, "Oh, yes, I am totally the parent's legacy fulfilled." So, my father, he was a wedding videographer, so I was always around cameras and editing growing up, and so I would work on his, like, quinceañeras and his, like, wedding videos, just, like, making titles and graphics for him, and then he would let me, like, play with his old cameras, so I was always around that equipment and, like, learning that since I was super young, but never thought of it as a career, like, it was just for fun as a hobby. I would do, like, videos for nonprofits, and then I went to my first film festival in college studying abroad in Egypt, and that was the, like, game changer of getting to see full films and getting to see, like, the power of actually getting to know about a specific community or somebody's story in such depth that documentary is able to go, and so I was like, "Yes, this is the path I want to take for sure." And so that was the
Absolutely.
inception of all of it.
Wow. And tell me about that time studying abroad in Egypt, because that in itself must have been an experience.
Totally, totally. So I went to Egypt to study abroad because I really wanted to learn Arabic. I'm half Mexican and half Palestinian, and unfortunately, I didn't grow up learning either language growing up in the suburbs of Chicago. And so I felt it was super important if I wanted to really pursue the fluency that I needed to go live in Egypt. So I did my entire junior year abroad in, in Cairo, and that was life changing for sure.
So after that studying and kind of immersing yourself in your first film festival and taking in all these different types of stories, what do you think for you was your next step in figuring out, okay, what kind of stories do I want to tell? What kind of movies do I want to make? Like, what's my next step from here?
Yes. So the first film that I decided to do was actually with another friend. We co-directed a short together. It was called The People's Girls, and it was all about street harassment in Egypt. And so I ended up staying there for much longer to be able to work on this first film. And it was very pertinent to me as a woman. I felt just very passionate about this issue of experiencing harassment and like, yeah, body rights and the injustice of the gender inequality. And so that was the first film that I worked on. It was about 27 minutes long. And that was like my learning of how to make a documentary, how to fundraise, how to build a production team, all of those steps that came very much into use for Traces of Home.
For sure, because there's a lot of elements in Traces of Home that I think called on a lot of parts of you, which is really interesting. Um,
Mm.
and before we dive into the process of that, tell me a little bit more about Mezcla Media Collective. How did the idea come about? How did you get it off the ground? And what is your hope for it?
For sure. So yeah, I started Mezcla Media Collective with another friend when I moved back to Chicago from Egypt. When I came back into the space of the industry in Chicago, it was so hard to find other women of color filmmakers. And a lot of networking events that I was going to was just like no diversity. And so we decided to create an event in 2017, like over 60 women showed up to that first event. And so from there, we're like, okay, it's clear that there is a need. Let us continue. And so we became a collective, and now it's a full fledged nonprofit that's serving over 700 women and non binary filmmakers of color in Chicago. So it's been, yeah, just beautiful to see how much it's grown organically, too.
That's incredible. Like, congratulations, number one, because yeah,
Thank
there needs
you.
to be that space. There needs to be those voices and stories being told, and there's not nearly enough. And from what I keep
Totally.
hearing from different people I talk to, community is everything. Like
Yes.
collaborating, coming together, making the opportunities, because waiting around for them, they're not going to come.
It's
And
so
it's nice
real.
to see that change. You're at the forefront of it. So I'm getting excited
Thank
for
you,
you.
thank you. Yeah, it's been really amazing because also I feel like at this time in the state of the world that now mescla is, like, essential anchoring. Just like, wow, that we've started to move into, like, mutual aid work and, like, doing other kinds of supports that are beyond the film space now because it's like community is the way that we're going to get
Yeah,
through all of what's happening right now. It's the only way, and I think people are realizing it more and more.
that's incredible because it sounds like it's growing even bigger than the original dream, which is always
Right,
like a
right, right,
beautiful
right.
like effect of that.
Yes, totally, totally, so grateful. Yes,
Now,
yeah.
Traces of Home, I have not been able to stop thinking about it since I watched it. It's just such a beautiful, powerful, and healing watch. In so many ways, I think a lot of people can relate to it, whatever their experience is. And I'm curious what first sparked your idea to make it a documentary and record the journey, because it's such a personal journey for you and your family.
So the idea first came in 2017 with the first administration round of what we're going through right now, where there was the family separations and then the refugee ban, that it just felt very, very essential to share my own parents' stories of forced migration. And along the journey, of course, it's starting out as political. I began to realize that this film was actually something much deeper. As I started going into production, I started going into racial identity therapy around this idea of like, where is home? Why do I feel so much disconnect from home? And in therapy, I just kept coming up over and over again with my relationship with my mom and how difficult it was feeling home at home in my house with my parents. And so it became a much deeper healing journey of healing from intergenerational trauma, which was also a new term that I learned in therapy of like, what is this pain that has affected our dynamics and our relationships growing up and my own sense of identity and self. And so it's become a full circle healing journey of finding home, not in Mexico, not in Palestine, not with my parents, but having to do it to find it within myself in the first place and having to take that big circle journey back to self.
I think that was one of the most beautiful parts of watching it. I went into it semi-blind. I just like read
Okay.
the synopsis and I was like, okay, like let me like dive in now. And getting surprised like at every turn of different parts of the journey that you and your
Mm,
family went through was just so incredibly touching. And it became clear as I watched more how much more personal it was getting for you, which was funny because you even mentioned how
mm,
you were behind the camera a lot, and that was kind of a little barrier for you to hide the vulnerability. And
right,
yet I could see it.
right.
Like I could see how it was getting to you little by little.
Mm,
And I think the most beautiful part also is I think when you finally did have a moment where you got sentimental, it was on behalf of your parents. And seeing that on screen was also very touching. And so I'm
mm.
curious if learning more about your parents' childhood and upbringing and their history also kind of inform your own identity.
Totally. Like, I feel like I was able to actually go into the core of who my parents are, why they are the way they are, and then why am I the way I am. And I feel like this journey of going back home and trying to find home really created a sense of compassion that I did not carry before, that it was very much rooted in like resentment and anger and just seeing it in like a very zoomed in lens. And that Traces of Home, this process of making the film, just like, whoa, there's a much larger social context and colonization and all of these pieces that made me understand that it was a much larger reasoning of why we had such difficulties in my house that allowed me to heal this sense of like, yeah, just really strong anger that was buried in my heart for so long. Yeah.
And it seemed like it not only was maybe healing for you, but for the rest of your family. So what was that experience like and kind of the process of it? Because there's could be a
Mhm.
lot of harder moments, more difficult and raw conversations that sometimes feel like you're diving into the pain to get through it.
Right. Right, right. Yeah, it feels like it's crazy, like, who decides to go deep into the pain? Like, it's very, very hard, and yet it's the most beautiful thing that we could have done, that my parents are very private people, and so they were very nervous about, like, "Colette, what are you gonna put out there?" Like, "What no, we're not going into, like, the family secrets or, like, the family shadows. Why would we do that?" And yet, I feel like as we started to go in every interview, just going a step deeper into the why and the intention, that they started to understand that it wasn't just about our family anymore, but it was like the immigrant experience and the child of immigrant experience, and then the Palestinian experience and the Mexican Latinx experience. So it just felt that they started to understand my intention was never to like just air out dirty laundry, but that it was from a place of wanting to understand and to heal. And it was hard. It was very, very difficult to get that. But I feel like, yeah, as we did more feedback screenings, as we got uh, more in depth with the interviews, it got easier over time and they became more open.
Yeah, it definitely seems that way. It like over the course of the documentary, it was almost everyone now comfortable in front of the screen. Like it went
Right.
from being like, do we need to record this to just kind of living, which was like so nice to see also because it's like the camera
Right.
wasn't there.
Right. Totally. Yes, I'm so glad. This is why I was like, I just have to keep filming the entire time because people are so self-conscious in front of cameras. Unless you spend time with the camera, it becomes just part of the daily process. So we have like 200 hours of footage, and so we had to bring it down to an hour and a half, which was crazy, but we did it. We did it.
Which is incredible because there's so much great footage that you put in, and then it's mixed with all these home videos, which your dad have
Mhm.
recorded so much over the years, which is such a blessing
Right.
too, because so many people lose that or they don't have enough, or
Yeah.
it's on a tape somewhere and then got thrown out, or
Yes. Yes, and this is I mean, like, your podcast is called Pursuit of Magic, like, it felt like that part was just me like, it feels like divine alignment that my dad was filming this from decades ago, you know? Like, it was in the process before I was even in existence yet,
it's so
that it
true.
just feels like a magical journey that we just had this treasure chest of footage to fill out the entire film. Yeah, so grateful, what a blessing, what a blessing.
It's so funny because I kept thinking that as I would see the home footage, I was like, wow, she's so lucky to have this stuff because not only just for personal reasons, but because of the documentary, you got to reference things and see yourself at that
Mhm.
age and different interactions or things you were saying. And it's such a sweet and beautiful kind of mirror to hold up to yourself and really maybe even see yourself differently. Maybe have some more empathy and compassion for your little self, which you didn't fully understand when you were
That's
that age.
true, that's true. Yes. Yes. Yeah, the inner child healing, it was totally, totally that. And to, like, see little Colette on screen and to be like, "Yes, yes, now I can finally, like, see you fully," versus, just keeping you hidden for so long and, like, the shame and the guilt of not feeling good enough to be myself. Yeah. Oof, deep.
And do you think now that the documentary is finished and it's out, people are watching it, do you think that little version of Colette and your current self are kind of more united
Oh.
now?
Oh, that's such a beautiful question. Yes. I feel like even just at the premiere in New York, I processed and reflected a bit more, but that it felt like it was a rite of passage, and now I can be in, like, full acceptance of this crazy 10-year journey with little Colette, and it feels like that was, like, the union point was in the celebration, in the premiere. Really, I it was profound, and of course, I know that there's still an evolution of healing to go, and
Of
yet
course, yeah.
it's a beautiful closure of a chapter that, feels really, really powerful.
Well, it shows, it radiates off you. So I'm very happy for you because that's such an
Thank you,
important part of anyone's journey.
thank
And not
you.
everyone gets to take that step. But the first step is being brave enough to take it. And you
Wow,
took it.
wow. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Sounds like you've taken it too.
Yeah, many times. Still taking it every day.
Yeah.
And that's part of the magic. I mean, that's what I love talking about what magic is. And, it could be a lot of things to different people depending on their experience of the
Mhm,
world around them. Everyone is so different. But do you think your
mhm.
journey discovering discovery on Traces of Home, you discovered that magic you were searching for? Where do you think exactly you found it? Was there like a moment, or do you think it was just at the end of everything you looked at it and was like, wow?
Yeah. I mean, this if we're really gonna go deep into the real whatever happened into Traces of Home,
Yeah.
I can easily say that it was my spiritual awakening. Like, it was my discovery of my own soul. There's no other way I can describe it. That before, I was very much, like, floating, and I just felt like I didn't really belong anywhere, and so realizing that I had the, like, come to Jesus, like, spark of lightning moment that it was like, "Wait, I've been searching externally this entire time, and nothing will ever give me the fulfillment that I'm seeking because it's not supposed to come from outside, that I always had to find it within." was just like a catharsis, like all of that. And I had to go through my dark night of the soul to get to that like rock bottom place to realize that yeah, I already had the light inside of me the whole time. So, yeah, that was the magic for sure. Pure
Which is so
magic.
funny you say that because so many people kind of say that, like, "But you're never gonna find fulfillment elsewhere, you know, you just gotta be happy with you." And it sounds so generic and cheesy
Yes.
sometimes where it's, like, easier said than done, number 1, but also it's so layered, it's so much more complicated than that. And I
Mhm.
think it's understanding yourself and
Yeah.
having a little compassion and empathy for yourself in a way where you are forgiving yourself for the things that
Wow.
maybe you're not liking so much. And
Wow.
I mean, I saw that in your journey. You know, your brother found it in his faith, and you were still trying to
Mhm.
find what that was for
Mhm.
you. And it
Mhm.
seemed like at
Mhm.
the end of it, you've discovered what that is. And
Right.
it's just like all these pieces coming together for you. So I
Mhm.
definitely felt the magic that you displayed and what you were feeling and what your
Wow.
journey was
Thank you.
because
Thank you.
wow, like what an experience for you.
Right? Yeah, it was I mean, and I have to admit, like, with my brother Ramsey, that his journey was faith, and it was mine too. Like, it ended up being spirituality was the missing component of something much larger than here. And so, uh, it was it I feel like that was the missing component of my journey thus far, and that it's hard to talk about because it's like, yeah, just all the different ideas of spirituality, and yet I think it's very important for us to be able to explore that inner world too. Yeah, of like what is our purpose here?
Do you think part of that roadblock for you over the years was not having an understanding of yourself and your parents and where you came from?
Yes. Yes, I feel like having that numbness and that pain of, like, avoiding anything, like, once you start avoiding the pain, you also avoid the joy, so you avoid everything about yourself. It's just so scary to go deeper because that's when you know you'll start to have to unpack the darker parts of you, the void, and for me, that's what happened, and so being able to learn more about, "Okay, actually, who am I? Like, what is my identity? What lights me up? What are the things that are uh, not in alignment, that it has really turned a page in in my own chapter. And I think also hitting 30 was a big moment in that too. I feel like something about being 30, it's just like, whoa, okay, I know who
Yep.
I am now. It's a big turning point.
It's so funny
Yes.
you say that because I think so many people say your 20s are about figuring out who you are. And I'm like, think like your 30s is where you figure out who you are.
Maybe 70s, who knows?
Yeah. You know, everyone's journey is different.
It's true. It's true.
Now, I
Yes.
think a lot of people can take so many things away from Traces of Home, and
Mm,
it could be such a personal watch for them as much as it was a
mhm,
personal journey for you. But
mhm.
how would you hope to create magic for anyone watching it, and what would you want them to take away from it?
Wow. I really pray that this film can be the catalyst for healing for many children of immigrants and refugees that have not been able to start their own awakening journey of really touching on the trauma because it is so scary to go deeper into it, and that having this as a model of being like, okay, well, here's somebody who did it and they came out on the other end and is like, it's just it's a so grateful, that's a whole other new life. It's a rebirth after going through the death of feeling the death of all the pain and trauma. And so being able to catalyze others' healing journeys and using this tool as medicine for them to go deeper would be absolutely a dream. And so really in like the space of inner liberation alongside decolonization and the walls and Palestine and the borders, that we have to do the inner work to be able to take down our inner walls too if we're going to show up in our full authentic power. It's essential for the revolution.
Well, I know I personally was affected by it, and I'm
uh,
curious what your experience at the Doc NYC festival was like, getting to have an audience watch it, and what kind of feedback you got from that.
mhm. Doc NYC was like the perfect place to premiere because it's like the city of immigrants, that it was real. I could have not dreamt of a better place to premiere than Doc NYC. Getting to watch it in a theater with, like, other, Latinx people, Palestinians, and, like, Arabs, it was just really so special, and, I could tell that something magical was happening in the theater, and after when people came out that you could just tell something had shifted in their hearts, the people who came up to me that were just like fully bawling, just like no words to be able to explain that they got the message of the film. And I was so grateful that it came through. And so it feels like people are ready for their own awakenings. It feels very, very clear that there is something happening in our collective consciousness that we are ready to step into our next version of ourselves. And that, yeah, it was just so special to get to witness that in a theater. Yeah, profound, profound. It wasn't a screening. It was like a sanctuary. I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah,
Beautiful. Very
that's the best
grateful.
kind of audience you could ask for. Just like a very
Yes.
like locked in, alive audience that is feeling all the things.
Mhm, mhm. And even it went beyond, I mean, even people that weren't just Latinx and Arab, that like, yeah, other identities and genders were also really moved by it. So yeah, hitting the universal core truth of like, what are we all searching for of belonging and home as humans? It's a collective thing.
Yeah, it's such a human story that connects all of us, and I feel like that's what makes it have the power it does to change hearts and to soften hearts and to make us look at ourselves and other people differently. And it really holds that power. And
Thank
I'm
you.
really curious, what was the most surprising part for you, whether it was during filming over the years or in the reception of it that you weren't expecting?
Ooh. I mean, one of the big shocks was the map that oh, I'm about to give a spoiler. No, I can't say it. I can't
Oh, no,
say
yeah, the
it.
map. We got to talk about the map.
The map blew me away. That's all I'll say. That was a really magical moment for sure that I was like, "What? There's a map? My God. Crazy."
It was a
Um,
detailed map too.
yes, yes. Crazy. So crazy. I don't know if I should talk about it or not. Is that okay? I don't
We
know.
can talk about it. You could limit how much you explain about it, but
Okay, okay.
what was so like cool about it is, I was looking at it, I was like, those are like the maps in like fantasy novels that are in the
Yeah,
inside cover that show all the different. I was like, wow,
Lord of the
like
Rings! Lord of the Rings!
I wish there were more of these.
I was not expecting that at all to exist. Incredible. So yeah, that was a big one for sure. And then another surprising moment. Yeah, I feel like a big surprise in production was also that I was the one that was so emotional and like really feeling the loss of the homes when I got to both places. Of course, my dad definitely was very emotional, but that I was expecting even more of an emotional reaction from them. And I guess it was interesting because I have still to unpack it, but I feel like maybe it's a generational thing of like, yeah, keeping our emotions inside versus letting it out. That it like skipped a generation of like that emotional impact. I don't know, but that was really interesting. I wasn't expecting that either.
That
Yeah.
moment actually stuck out to me too, and I had thought the same thing. I come from a Puerto Rican family, and I have
Oh, nice.
a grandmother and I have uncles and aunts and cousins, and I know that that's a similar thing where there's a generational thing about keeping your emotions in. And there's moments that it'll
Mm,
be shown, but a lot of times like they learn to like stay strong and keep things together and keep things in, pretend everything's fine. And
right.
so it shows. And so that moment in the documentary, I had thought the same thing, but then I also thought that they shifted it to parent mode. Like your dad saw you getting emotional and was like, I need to pull this together and comfort her, which was beautiful too, because it was like, yeah, I have
Wow.
this pain, I have this trauma, but my daughter is feeling it right now. Like I don't want her to
Wow.
feel it.
Wow, 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 wow. That's an excellent point. I didn't even think about that. Totally, the parent-child dynamic was in play. It totally makes sense. Wow,
It
thank you
was
for
it
that.
was beautiful to watch it too, because just that scene, his focus shifted completely. He was like, oh wait, no.
Yes, 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 it's true. Gosh, yeah, my parents. I'm so grateful for the care. I know it's true. Yeah.
And I think you said there was another surprise that took you something like that.
Mm,
Even in the reception of it, even it wasn't the filming.
yes, right. The reception of it. I mean, it's just crazy. The people who have really, really felt it are like of my specific demographic, like millennial, either mixed or Palestinian or Latinx, and like talking with the people who are my mirror and like my immediate reflection, that was something that was like profound. of seeing how much that it just felt like they were watching themselves on screen, and that they were like, "I've never seen anything that deep within my own story on camera." And that, I didn't realize because, again, that I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago, I didn't really feel like I had much of a story compared to my parents who went through this, like, intense trauma, like, really crazy stories, and I was like, "I don't know, like, we'll see if this lands about my own, like, me and my brother's upbringing, like, so, like, it's a place of privilege versus what my parents went through," and yet somehow it still deeply resonated with people because many are at that stage of being the child of immigrants, like, figuring out, "Okay, who am I as this third culture kid?" Yeah,
Completely.
yeah, that
Yeah,
was a
I
great
mean,
one too.
it's funny you hit on all the points because yeah, I'm millennial. I'm Puerto Rican, and both sets of
Okay.
my grandparents came from Puerto Rico, moved here. Both of my parents were born here, but
Wow,
then I was
wow.
raised here. So I didn't go to Puerto Rico until a year or 2 ago, 2 years ago, I think, for the first time. And so, like, I
What?
haven't had that kind of upbringing. I was not taught Spanish growing up. My grandparents never taught my parents,
My gosh,
so
it's
my parents never taught me.
oh my god.
And yeah, just like you said,
There
those kind
it
of
is.
stories,
There it
they're
is.
out there, but I never see them. They're not told, and
Mm,
there is a longing that's there to connect
yes,
with where we're from
yes.
more
And you feel
and
like a
to
phony,
feel like we're
'cause you
deserving
have
of
to
it. Yeah.
yes, yes,
So
yes.
what was that part of you? I mean, your parents are so deeply connected with it, but for you, like you
Mhm.
said, was a little different of experience. What was it like? Did you have to overcome those feelings of like the separation and feeling like, well, I know sometimes I feel like, well, who am I to claim this when I
Yeah,
feel like a little bad about it.
yeah, like a phony.
Yeah.
Totally, totally. Wow, thank you so much for sharing your own story, Matt. That really means a lot, because I feel like now
Yeah.
I understand your own context too of like, "Oh, yeah, you totally get it."
Yeah.
Sure, and I'd love to hear your own Puerto Rico story too, like, at some point. That would be amazing to hear your own
Absolutely.
return journey. Sorry, now I forgot the question. If you can say it one more time.
Were there obstacles of feeling like you don't know if you're the right person to claim this story and to tell it? Or was there any of that kind of obstacles in your way or a feeling of trying to navigate how to connect with where you're from when you weren't raised in either place?
Right. Yes. Yes. So I definitely felt it. I mean, what I'm very grateful for is that I did learn the languages to be able to go to Mexico and Palestine. I feel like it would have been a completely different experience if I didn't have Spanish or Arabic when I went back to both places. So I am grateful for that, but definitely the obstacle of, you know, trying to find this sense of home and then actually going to both places and still not feeling like they're mine either, but I still felt like a visitor there and in the US, like, it's really hard of like, okay, what is my cultural group? What is my sense of belonging? Like, there is none. I feel like what happened with me was that I had to realize that our generation and our experience is its own identity now. Like, claiming to be mixed in the US is its own cultural group, and we have our own experiences and norms that are just going to continue to be like this as the US just gets more and more mixed
Yeah.
and ambiguous culturally. That's what the experiences is going to be, and how do we find our own sense of belonging and rootedness in that too. It's not easy, but we have to do it.
Yeah, and I feel like it's almost up to us to define it, which I think
Right.
you were doing with the documentary. You were
Right.
defining your generation and also
Mm,
showing where that generation comes from, where the roots are
mhm.
coming from.
Mhm. Yeah, what beauty that there is, like, wow, how beautiful to say that, yeah, we have Puerto Rican heritage or Mexican heritage or Palestinian heritage, and that we can continue to go back to those roots and also to have be the bridge to the Western US American identity too. Like, that's a pretty special place to be that we can be chameleons
Yeah,
in both
it's
in
true.
both. Yeah. It's pretty amazing. So I feel like I've accepted. I think I've been acceptance now that that's
Yes.
who I am. I'm a bridge.
Which is the peaceful center, which I think is part of the beauty
Mhm.
of it.
Yes,
And,
yes.
we talk a lot about how beautiful the journey ended up being, and some of that experience, even in the pain, there was a lot of beauty. And I'm wondering
Mhm.
if there were, because it was a long process, were there low
Yes.
moments where you weren't sure, like, how do I keep this going? like, what's my next step here?
Yes,
And
every
how
day.
am I and then your own personal emotions in it. Like how sometimes you could be disheartened. You could feel like, what the hell am I doing today?
Totally, totally. I mean, it is no joke. Like editing 200 hours down to a 1.5 hour. I was like, I have and this is my first time making a feature film. And I was like, I have absolutely no idea what the process is of how to do that. And I'm so grateful that I was connected to a professional named editor that could help guide me through the journey of like, okay, this is how we start to create the story structure. This is how do we start to start to make cards of like where do scenes go. And somebody else actually told me like, Colette, maybe you need to study narrative arcs because I didn't study film in college either. So and like storytelling and like story structures, I zero, nothing. And so they're like, yeah, maybe you should look into the hero's journey. And I was like, okay. So I started reading the hero's journey and it fit like literally like in the exact trajectory of a hero's journey of like meeting the mentor. That was my brother. And then going on the big journey. And then, oh no, something bad happens. We lost, the house. And so it was really, really amazing to have that story structure to help guide me through the process. But yeah, when we were in the early stages of like the 3 hour cut, the 3.5 hour cut, I had absolutely no idea how I was going to cut it down and like be able to add my own inner reflections without it feeling corny or like leading the audience. And so the voiceover narration was also very, very, very difficult to be able to
Sure.
finesse and get it to like a point where it wasn't on the nose and it wasn't too abstract. So that was another one too. Yeah. Those are some of the big ones.
It's so funny how you say it was your first feature because it didn't show. And I
Wow.
kept doing I was like, what else has she done? Like, I'm
Wow.
trying to find more. Like it flowed so well. And
Thank
so
you.
I think
Thank
that's the
you.
beauty of someone who has talent and puts in so much work that
Thank you.
it seems effortless. And yet I
Yeah.
know it takes so much work and time
Oh
and
my god.
and tears and blood and all of it.
Yes, yes, and I really have to credit my editor. She was phenomenal in this process. She was, like, the person that got me through every day in the edit room, just, like, revisiting the trauma day after day. She became my therapist for sure, too, while also being a phenomenal master editor and storyteller herself. Yeah, Sarah's amazing too.
So needed, which
Yes.
also makes me ask about your team, the team of people you work with to put this together, and what was that experience like collaborating with others and
Yeah.
especially because it was such a personal thing. I mean, everyone who makes a film, especially when they're directing and writing it, it's somehow personal because it's like their baby, but this is actually very personal because it's your story.
Right, right, right. Yeah, in the beginning, it's hard because it's like, who's gonna like this film? Because it's about me and my family. So it's hard to try to promote it or sell yourself when it feels like it's so personal. And so in the beginning, it was just me. I was in a fellowship and I needed to have a producer on board for like a grant application. So somebody was super kind and was like, sure, I'll put my name down just to like put my name on it just for you to get this grant. And then from there, I was able to go into production, and then I hired local crews in Mexico and Palestine, and that was my first time, like, actually starting to work with crews, which was amazing. And then once I went into post-production, that's when the teams began with, like, now needing to hire editors and bringing them on board, and then the colorist, and then the animators, and then the composer, and then I just, like, boom, 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 it just started to grow. And then we started to get the real producers on board that were, like, actually going to fundraise and advocate for the film. And then the executive producers that just joined on a couple months ago of like getting Melissa Barrera and John Leguizamo, like unbelievable, unbelievable. It's just crazy that it's just like taken its own life organically. It feels like of the team growing. Yeah, so grateful.
I feel like it both has and hasn't. I think it's a show of the effort you put in and the work that you made that people are responding. They're seeing how beautiful
Wow.
and powerful it is and they believe in it.
Thank
So
you,
I'm
Matt.
so
Thank you.
excited to see that
Thank
more and
you.
more people are hopping on and wanting
Thank
to be part
you.
of it. I think that's part of the beauty of it.
Thank
And
you.
it's
That
funny
means
you
a lot.
mentioned the artist because that's another segment of the documentary that I loved. The little segments where there
Mhm.
were flashbacks of storytelling and there was artwork, there was animation. Like I went to school for animation, so I have a deep love for it. But I just feel like it
What?
was such a
Oh,
beautiful part.
wow, very cool. Yeah, I knew I wanted to use animation from, like, very, very early on because I didn't wanna use, like, black and white archival of Mexico and Palestine. It was just like, if there's a way that I can actually like bring my parents' escape stories to life and being able to do that with animators from both places that are going to be able to really paint the landscapes from their own cultural upbringing. So we hired a Lebanese animator and then a Mexican animator that did both the Mexican and then the Palestine animations. And yeah, just phenomenal. It was so I never had worked with animators before either. So just like seeing the artistic talent, it was wow. Magic. Magic is the theme. Totally.
And I feel like it added so much to the storytelling element because, yeah, like you said, normally documentaries have this archival footage and it's very straightforward and you think you're just getting information. But I think with the
Right.
animation element, there was an element of feeling like you were being told a story from a storybook and
Mm,
that there
mm,
was going to be some kind of uplifting or beautiful endpoint at some point. And like
wow.
we were leading somewhere. Even when we were hearing about the terrible traumatic stuff, I felt like, well, I want to know where this ends up. Like I want to know how
Right.
this ends now.
Right. Right.
And it just added so much beauty to it that I think was
Wow.
to its benefit.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's sort of scary because sometimes it feels like animations and docs can start to get into like again, like the tacky, cheesy
Yeah.
side. So I was like, we need to make this like very like just very like natural and I just wanted it to be more like watercolor abstract. I didn't want it to be like so you see people's faces, like everything was very childlike memories to keep it in a space that didn't feel so yeah, cartoon.
Which
Yeah.
I think also went hand in hand with your parents' memories because some of
Right.
them are fuzzy.
Right.
And
Right.
so that kind of just added to it.
Yes, yes, and it was interesting too because I was like, I wanted to be able to share my parents' stories in the way that I received them, that it always felt like this like far out story fantasy that I had never like thought of as real life because it just felt so far away. So I wanted to have that animation quality too, that it just felt like a distant fantasy almost. But then it became very real when we
Yeah.
went.
In so many ways. And, part of that realness is facing pain and things that weren't talked about for years, either with each other or with yourselves. But it was followed by a lot of healing in the documentary.
Mhm.
And were there any moments or experiences that brought brought you or your family healing after the filming, after it was out and getting to see it?
Yeah, I think, it has brought a lot of trust in my family. I'm so grateful that my parents did this as an act of love for me because they had no idea what was going to come out of this. And I think after them seeing it at the premiere, because they hadn't seen the final version yet, that was their first time seeing it in its completion, that there was like a solidification of trust that really I'm so grateful for that they're like, "Yes, Colette, like, we felt like you honored our stories very well," and that, like, there was a level of compassion even in the, telling of the difficult things within our family that they felt the love coming through, and so that was really, really powerful. And then, yeah, just getting them to be with them in New York, like, who gets to do that with their parents? To get to have that reconciliation and then to get to celebrate that, like, yeah, what a gift. So, so grateful that I got to do this in this lifetime for my parents and with my parents.
Well,
Yeah.
it's so beautiful. And
Thank
I know
you.
it was a long process. How long was that process of like filming and editing? I know it was
Yeah.
like a few years, right?
9 years. Yes. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, I started it, like, end of 2016, 2017, and I thought I would be done 2 years later. Nope. No, 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 no. Yeah, but it needed that time, it needed to marinate.
Yes.
It had to. There was no way otherwise.
I think it's also good timing because look, the pandemic
Oh,
happened.
whoa,
Well, so
whoa,
many other
whoa.
things happened,
Totally.
and now it's lining up and it's got this adrenaline, like it's going.
Mhm.
So I think
Yeah,
things happen when they're supposed to.
I totally agree. I totally agree. This is, like, no better time that we need this type of film so badly. Yeah, our people.
So
Gosh.
I think especially yeah nowadays, and I can only imagine what it was like for you working on it for so long through everything that's happening,
Mm.
in the news and around the world. And do you think that sometimes was disheartening for you, or do you think it spurred you onward? Like, I need to put this out.
Yeah. I mean, really, the really tough part was in during the genocide with like Gaza. Working on, of course, I'm so grateful that I was able to work on a film about Palestine with everything going on. But yeah, it really the grief was very, very intense, and it was very hard to work on this project during that time too. So I did have to step back a little bit because I was like, "This is just a lot to have to, unpack my parents' trauma while also like, seeing real life extreme suffering and violence of Palestinians was very hard. And yet I did feel like, it propelled me to be like, okay, yes, this film is needed now more than ever. We need to tell our stories while they're literally being erased. Very hard, very, very hard. So yes, that was definitely a catalyst on the journey.
Well, now it's out, and I feel like it's changing hearts and
Yeah,
lives.
thank
I'm
you.
wondering also what was your favorite part about the process? Was there a favorite part? Was there a couple where within those 9 years that you were like, I am in my element, like I'm doing what I'm supposed to?
Oh, these are such good questions. I, you know, there's a part in the film where I have a very difficult conversation with my mom that was very, very, very hard, and it took me, like, a year to be able to finally have that conversation of, like, being like, "Yes, this is me, this is who I am, here I am just laying it all out," and I didn't think I was ever gonna be able to do it, and then finally, I was able to get the courage to just go for it, and for after that, it felt like a thorn had been removed from my being, that, like it was, like, such a huge sense of relief, and to be like, "Oh, wow, like, I'm free, like, I can live in my truth now, I don't have to hide anymore." That was a really big one for me. That was one I think one of the most fulfilling moments of the whole thing, if not the most. It was yeah, liberating.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite scenes
Mhm,
because it's so powerful and so raw and personal and relatable. I think the idea
mm,
of you opening up and trying to be so vulnerable and the first response to kind of be like not knowing how to handle that or like
right,
well
right.
you didn't come to me and very relatable number one, but also like
Oh,
seeing you go through that process of trying to be patient and empathetic while also being like I need to say this
yes,
was
yes,
just it's so beautiful to witness.
thank
And so I'm
you.
wondering when you had to edit, what was that like kind of looking back at it? Because it was after
Mm,
the thorn was taken out, but now you had to
right.
like watch
Yes,
it
to
and watch
go
yourself.
into it. Yes, yes. Yeah, I started editing that maybe, like, a year after we filmed it, so it came later in the film, so it was more time to process through it. And, that interview was, like, 40 minutes long. So, it was also a scene that was, like, 12 minutes and then 9 minutes, and then we're like, "We have to get this down to 3 to 4 minutes." There is no way! Like, we're losing so much context. And so that one was a very hard one to, like, whittle down into, like, what is the core essence that we need in this conversation. Yeah, it was tough, but we were able to do it after a lot of feedback screenings of, like, okay, what's actually unnecessary to include in that. Yeah, and then even, like, having it be out a year out, that I was actually able to, like, see it more in a third person versus being so attached to it, and so I was able to, like, laugh at myself at some points, which I would never have been able to do if I did that, like, right as I watched it, for sure. So, yeah, I was able to detach more.
Well, that's definitely a sign of healing, getting to laugh at
Yes,
yourself and look
yes,
back on it.
yes, yes, yes.
And I know, the process of filmmaking in general, it's not easy. And then
Mhm,
on top of that, you were teaching yourself things throughout the process and also hitting those roadblocks of it taking longer than you anticipated and trying to
right,
edit down so much footage that you had. You had so much great content. And, pursuing that kind of dream can sometimes be very difficult. Even before maybe
mhm,
you started filming, just the idea of it can feel overwhelming. And so I'm
totally.
curious what advice you would give to others who want to pursue a dream but feel overwhelmed, scared, or
Yeah.
maybe like they're not good enough to get it done.
Yeah, so of course I had no idea that this journey was going to take the turns that it did. And if I knew, I think I would not have done it, to be honest. Like if I knew I was going to spend almost a decade, um it would be very, very difficult. So I would say starting with literally a log line and a synopsis is phenomenal. And just like doing your writing before you even go into filming to just start to flesh out like, okay, what is this idea? What is my motivation? Why am I doing this? And then from there, I literally just like did one interview with my parents, and that was my trailer. Was just an interview and some photo albums. And that's where we got our first grants. And so if somebody is interested in doing personal docs or that kind of thing, like, yeah, just get in a mic, really dinky camera, it doesn't matter your phone, and just doing the interview is the best way to start. And then maybe add in some, whatever B-roll. It's fine. Even if it's terrible. If somebody saw the 2016 version, it'd be like, oh man, what is this YouTube video? Like, terrible, terrible. And yet we have to start somewhere. So keeping out the perfection, it's step by step, step by step.
But I think that's a great advice because I think that's the fear that keeps people from doing stuff. They want it to be perfect. They're like, "Oh, I'm not polished enough. I'm not this enough. I'm not that." And it's kind of like, just do it. Just start doing it.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. And also, I would say having a community and accountability that I was in a fellowship when I first started it. And so I had to submit the trailer. I had to submit my grant application, treatment, and synopsis. So finding fellowships and finding that level of like film community is also essential to not feel so alone in the process, which is also, yeah, Mezcla is also was a huge component of that, a support system for me as well.
That's definitely a running theme I hear from a lot of people how important community is because any kind of creative
Hmm.
field, I feel like even though there's so many people in it, we always hear, "Oh, there's so many people doing this or that, whatever." It can also feel very solitary. You could just feel
Totally.
like, especially when it's something so personal to you and you're so invested and you feel like everyone is kind of running tandem, but on their own path.
Hmm.
And
Right,
not everyone
right.
talks about the harder times or when things aren't working out or you're getting closed doors or no's. So how has community kind of impacted your experience, either through this, making this documentary, or even now, like in the reception of it?
Yeah. I mean, community has been the most essential piece of this process that thankfully I was able to get into quite a few different fellowships, and that each stage of the process, having that level of accountability and the mentorship and the guidance and support was invaluable. It would have been very, very difficult to do this on my own. And so that was another one big part. And then the other is for the actual community of the themes of the film. And so from the beginning, I started to create an advisory board of relevant like nonprofit orgs in the Latinx space, immigration, Palestine, mental health, and starting to like learn more about what they do and how this film could support their work. And now we have a list of about 200 orgs that now when the film is done, we can actually start to create the partnerships and collaborations that have been building over the years. And so building out that community for it to be of service is essential too.
That's incredible.
Hmm.
I'm
Thank
so
you.
happy and so proud that that's one of the things that's coming out of this because it's so kind of essential to your identity and also to what you're trying to do with this documentary and how you're trying to reach people and make a difference. And I feel like the fact that there's this connectivity now with these organizations and with this
Mhm.
film, it just shows the beauty of. Now, I'm curious, what is the next steps for Traces of Home? I know it's still
Yeah.
available to stream for a few more days. So are there
Hmm.
plans for other festivals or a wider release, or is there stuff you can't talk about just yet?
Yeah, so there is an announcement that went out recently that we're acquired by Watermelon Pictures, which we're super excited about. And so definitely wanting it to be streaming next year. We're first going to go through the film festival circuit, so bringing it to different cities across the US and internationally, and then having community screenings at universities, community centers, libraries, faith institutions. So like just being able to bring it out to as many people as possible. There is also an attached impact campaign with Traces of Home, which is all around trauma healing for children of immigrants and refugees. So, actually, for Doc NYC, we actually had our first pilot somatic healing workshop with like 20 people who came out for it. And it was absolutely beautiful right before the second screening. And it really solidified, like, yes, people are ready to go deeper into their own healing and that we have to do it in a communal way as well. So, being able to have these workshops alongside screenings in like major cities across the US is also very, very essential for the next steps for the film to be used.
Well,
Yeah.
beautiful. I'm very excited
Thank
to
you.
follow along and see where Traces
Thank
of
you.
Home goes next, and also just
Thank you,
what you're
Matt.
doing next. You have created a fan in me. You are so talented and so sweet. And
Thank,
I just, I love the
thank
documentary,
you.
love chatting with you. You are definitely a
Oh,
magic maker. So don't
wow.
stop.
Wow,
Keep
Matt.
making magic. Very excited to have you on. It's been an honor. And I will
Wow.
put your info below so people can follow you and also the documentary. Um, and everyone out
Okay.
there, keep making magic.
Yay.
Bye,
Yes. Keep
everybody.
making magic. I love it.
Till
Thanks.
next time.